Name is Osei-Frimpong, and you're watching this week's edition of the Black Athenians. It's going to be a fantastic show, and as you could, I got in a little bit of hot water. It's just Wednesday for me, but other people got in their feelings about me saying that fighting white people is a skill, and
you got people in their feelings.
I got people in their feelings by saying fighting white people is a skill, and I want to do a whole show, and I think it's appropriate to let it be known that fighting white people is a skill. It's not just something you wake up out of the womb to do. And it's especially not something that you're taught to do in schools. That's not something they teach you in schools. They teach you how to call the police on black people. They teach you how to treat black people like garbage. Nobody ever teaches you how to fight white people. Martin Luther King, and this is very important because this is that weekend. Martin Luther King was still in his whole life trying to figure out the right way to fight white people. And right when he was on the cusp of doing it, they put a bullet in him. So fighting white people is a skill, and you're going to get an education. Matthew, hit the beat.
To the beat, y'all.
Yeah. Sound good to me. Never change the ways for the world or the government. If I was the president, then I would state facts. You leave it up to me, I paint the White House black and ain't no future in your front.
So fighting white people is a skill. There are a lot of skills out there, people, that we pretend are natural, but they're not. Like being in a good relationship is a skill. A marriage is a skill. And it's not something you can practice and get better. You have to actually think and engage and think about it carefully. So yes, like that, fighting white people is a skill. And it's a skill my parents never learned. I don't think too many people actually know. White people don't know how to fight white people. The amount of white people who are scared to talk to other white people about their whiteness and the problem of whiteness is huge. What's her name? Not Jane Addams. It might be Jane Addams. Jane Blue
Elliott.
Jane Elliott. Jane Elliott is an anomaly. She went all the way around the United States teaching white people how to fight other white people on the grounds of whiteness. And she's good at her job, but she's the anomaly. Most people don't know how to fight white people. We're not taught to that. We're not taught how to fight white people about whiteness. We're taught how to punish black people, treat them like garbage, but we're not taught how to fight white people. And when I say that, even white people don't know how to fight white people, this means including women. Nobody knows. When's the last time you told a white woman anything? No, you're not allowed to, because they'll go after your job.
New Year's Eve.
They'll put you in. Yeah.
they'll put you in the hospital.
It didn't go down very well.
No,
they'll put you in the hospital. No, there's a lot.
Lie about what happened.
You got the white guys with their guns, but you also got the white women with their cell phones. None of them are each of them are not afraid to use violence against black people if you make them feel in a certain way. And when I said fight, you think physical fight, but it's all sorts of any sort of contestation with white people is a skill. Everything is a skill. I'm teaching my kids piano right now because you know what? It's a skill. And the first time you do it, you're not going to do it very well. So you need to practice. You need to think about it. But there is going to be some compulsion involved, because the last time it never actually works when you try to morally persuade white people to give up whiteness without a stick involved.
Without, you cannot shame them.
No, and this is the thing about nonviolence. We're going to talk a little bit about nonviolence, and then I'm going to move over. But the idea is that waiting on moral persuasion to loosen the bonds of the racial caste system in the United States has never worked. It's actually it's been punished again and again and again and again and again. So there's a way in which white people do not mind being shamed about their whiteness, and we don't have a culture where it's even appropriate to even think about maybe we should even shame white people, because then they're like, no, you can't shame us. No, you should be ashamed of some things. On the University of get me a picture of Mildred Rutherford. On the university campus, there's Rutherford Hall. I believe it's a dorm named after Mildred Rutherford. Mildred Rutherford was an awful, awful human being. And she was a terrible human being. She is terrible. Terrible. And we have a dorm named after her because nobody can say white women are terrible. Mildred Rutherford was terrible. She spent her entire adult life trying to skew the history books to tell people that slavery wasn't that bad and we should honor Confederate veterans. And for that, we gave her a building on the campus. Everyone on campus should be a little bit ashamed that we can't muster the political will to take her name off of the building or tell the truth about Mildred Rutherford. It's Rutherford Hall at the University of Georgia. And the reason we can't do it is because nobody knows how to fight white people, like on their whiteness. Nobody knows how to do it, and that's unfortunate. And it's a skill, and it's something that needs to be practiced. And I said before that this is one reason why I'm happy with integrated schools, because at integrated schools you deal with white people, and you're not so scared of them throughout your life. So I went to integrated school, and I'm not scared of white people. But like honestly, a lot of the people I know who didn't go to school with white people, like are scared of white people in a way that I'm not. So I kind of credit the school, but it's made it the case that they are bad. Like the bad ones are bad. The good ones are good, but the bad ones are bad. And I'm not under any illusion that the bad ones aren't bad.
And not the majority currently.
Right.
I mean, if we look at the voting record.
We look at the voting record, like the majority of white people like don't vote very well. And it's not just the bad white people, it's the ones who don't know how to actually address the bad white people. They're just as bad because they're not practiced in fighting white people, because it takes a skill. So if you want to preserve your friendship with like your white racist friend, you're not appropriately practiced in fighting white people because you're still trying to preserve your friendship.
Or you're a horrible person.
Yeah. Or if you think that like moral suasion will work at the end at a hard limit with a lot of these people, no. Part of the practice, part of the skill of fighting white people is realizing when moral suasion won't work. Like for for desegregating schools, it wasn't Brown versus Board of Education that did the work. No, they were like, no, the white local governments just ignored it. It wasn't until the ESEA, which tied federal money to desegregating school, actually did the work. So once we tied their money to it, we had to starve them. And that's a form of violence, but we had to starve them into actually letting in black people into like high quality schools. And that's what actually did the work. So, but that's a skillful maneuver. So you have to think in terms of skill. And a lot of people and black people, we don't know how to fight white people. And this is one thing I was talking about with the World War I and World War II veterans and why we got civil rights gains when those people came home, because they came home from killing white people over in Europe. And then they're like, oh no, this is not just. So like they weren't scared of white people. But unless you are practiced in fighting white people, you're going to be scared of them because they're terrifying. They're terrifying. And make no mistake, if you think that I'm going around saying, well, you should just kill all white people. No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that the person on your Facebook who's posing with a gun in their profile picture, that person's terrorist. And they're pretty much saying that like, if anyone's taking me and mine, I'm going to kill them. So like and that works with a lot of black people. That's why we don't say anything. And I will tell you a few things, right? I will tell you there are more white people posing with guns on their social media than there have been in every single hip hop video in the history of hip hop. Like black men posing with guns.
Christmas cards.
Like,
whole families
with
guns.
No.
Rifles, not even just guns.
So if you say that like black hip hop culture is violent, no. You look at white country culture, like everyone's got a gun and they're just posing with it, and that gun is to shoot you. So so make no mistake, if you think the ghetto youth are violent, like Cletus and like, I don't know, I'm in the South. Jim Bob and Jackson, like no, they named their kids off of like out of like Confederate generals. So you have to understand that yes, fighting white people is a skill, and it's a skill that we don't take seriously. And every single black institution in these United States is shaped by the fear of white people. Every single black, even the NOI, even the Nation of Islam, it's all shaped by the fear of white people because they're terrifying. And so if we want to get out of this terrorist state, we need to learn how to fight them. And that includes, but is not limited to, like violence, but mostly it's the other way. Because what they can do, before white people shoot you, they'll try to take your job, they'll try to take your house, They'll threaten you and they'll send you to prison. The amount of fear that's just like saturated in black communities of white people is just horrifying and will never lead to justice. And honestly, there are a lot of black fatalists who just give up. They just give up. Well, we'll never be free or just or made whole in the United States, so why even try?
Yeah, well, I mean, I definitely think we have people who get into the idea that it's hopeless.
It's hopeless.
So this is the best we're going to do. Just accept it. And
they'll give us a parade or
a promise of a better afterlife.
Ooh, that was. We can't they pretty much talked us out of seeking justice here, and we won't get it in heaven. So that's every single black institution in these United States is shaped by the fear of confronting white people about justice. Your church is about Jesus, but it's about Jesus as long as it doesn't make white people uncomfortable. Your school is about justice and learning, especially your school. Your school is about learning history as long as it doesn't make it's not the kind of history that makes white people uncomfortable.
So it's not honest.
So it's not honest. No. White comfort is more important than honesty in these United States.
Oh.
White comfort is more important than honesty in these United States. So, yeah, Matthew, do you have anything? What's going on?
I was thinking about Daryl Davis, who is like the black jazz musician or black blues musician who like converted like 200 Klans members over to like dethroning the robes, sort of throwing away the Klan life. But like as it turned out, when like they're doing a documentary about him, like the people who converted away from the Klan were like killed by their white wives, and like the Klan in Maryland was actually reformed and reinstated. So I think it's interesting to think like even if we don't think of fighting white people as a skill, maybe like loving them is a better option, it doesn't work out.
It doesn't work out. It doesn't work out because you have to deal with, there's a hard limit. So I'm going to talk a little bit about nonviolence and the violence that's embedded in nonviolence. Nonviolence is not peaceful. It's militant. Militant nonviolence. Gandhi got this. King got this. And if you want to get this in writing, look at the speech Showdown for Nonviolence. It's a King speech about where he clears the road for militant nonviolence. And it was like, look, you need militant nonviolence because the goal is to expose their violence. Because right now black people are just terrified and white people are just happy. And white people don't think they're violent. But the goal is just,
do they watch the news?
White people don't but white people don't think they're violent. So what we're going to do is just act like everyday human beings and have that trigger all sorts of violence in white people. And so they will have to be shamed by the violence that's already in them. Like that's how nonviolence works for Gandhi and King. They're like, look, we just do the things we should be able to do as humans, and that will trigger all sorts of nonviolence. That will trigger all sorts of embedded violence that will become made manifest. And then if we publicize it right, white people will be shamed and change their way. And they'll understand that, wow, we've been violent the whole time, and they will change their way. That kind of works if people can be shamed. It's just an open question whether popular white culture can be shamed. I don't know if your Trump voters can be shamed. I don't think so.
I just had a driver for Lyft that was a Trump voter who wanted me to really understand why he supported Donald Trump.
So he actually cared about your wanted.
Oh, he wanted me to understand why he supported Donald Trump. And I swear it was the strangest conversation in a car that I can't get out.
Oh, he was the driver?
He was the driver.
He was the driver. I'm in your car. Okay, yes, sir.
I feel perfectly comfortable having this conversation while you're behind the wheel and I'm in the back seat being driven around in Lyft. Yeah, absolutely amazing.
Yeah, no, this is great. No, all right, so the goal is, insofar as you can be shame them. But then we have to deal with the fact that some people are not really ashamed of how bad they treat black people. They're not really ashamed. And then we got to figure out what's next. What do you do then with the people who can't be ashamed of how bad their policies treat black people? I don't know. We're going to organize around them. But it's going to come but that's the contest, and that's what we have to think through, because nonviolence is always premised on the idea that white people can be shamed if we can figure out the right kind of shaming mechanism into reforming and treating black people like human. That may or may not be true. That may or may not be true. It's possible, and this is what Bobby Wright thinks, Dr. Bobby Wright, when you talk about black people, you got to always use all their titles because people think that we don't have any. So Dr. Bobby Wright says, look, the ethical and cultural development is not there, so they can't be shamed by what they do to black people. They lack the ethical and cultural development, and it's a great essay, with a psychopathic racial personality, psychopathic. It's only 10 to 12 pages long. It's a fantastic essay where Wright just kind of goes through the arguments about, hey, look, they're not neurotic, they're not psychotic, they're psychopaths. And if they're neurotic, that just means they have too much anxiety about like everyday things. If they're psychotic, that means it's getting in the way of like them doing things like in a substantive way. But like if you're just a psychopath, you can hold down a job. Like you can even be charming and humane. You just won't care about like the rights and wrongs like that you do to black people. So he's like, look, like white people are psychopaths, and through a lack of cultural development, like the moral equivalent of 3-year-olds probably. But the question is, as adults, and you pair this with a guy named Jason Stanley. Jason Stanley wrote a wonderful book called How Propaganda Works, and it's either Jason Stanley's How Propaganda Works or Iris Marion Young's Responsibility and Justice. Anyway, these unjust relationships I think it's How Propaganda Works. These unjust relationships are held together by social position. That means if you could destabilize the social position, if you could destabilize what whiteness means in the United States, then like we'll stop creating white psychopaths. That's the goal. Because it's not like a genetic, I don't think it's a genetic thing. I think it's just we have these social institutions that teach white people into being psychopaths when race is the variable. And so unless we destabilize those institutions and dismantle them, like we will still have to deal with psychopathic white people. And just as disturbing, we will still be a terrorized, colonized community because black people are terrorized. And I don't think it's just black people. I suspect it's most non-white people are terrified of white people. Not just violently, but they just know that there is no...
The rules change for them.
There is no justice to be had.
Yes.
Like the promises don't mean anything. Ask the Indians. Like, are white people psychopaths? The Native Americans, are white people psychopaths? They're like the definition of a psychopath is like, right and wrong don't mean anything. Yes, I will sign this treaty. Of course, I don't have any intention of honoring it. Of course, I will sign it, and not like this is what Clinton might be this way too. But of course, I'm not required to. And like you're not the kind of people for whom rights matter.
Yeah.
Like, and this was Plessy versus Ferguson, right? When the justice said, black people have no rights that white people are obligated to honor. So like you could say or do anything for you. Yeah, I mean, we've all dealt with psychopathic people who will say anything and then without any intention of actually following through.
Yeah.
Yeah, because right and wrong doesn't matter to them with respect to you. They might honor the promises they make to other white people, although I believe their psychopathy like metastasizes.
I think if we look at history, when they run out of other people to fight, they fight each other.
They fight each other.
The world wars have proven to us that if they can't put their foot on somebody else's throat, they will eventually go, oh, okay, you'll do.
Right. So like when you get in the habit, and just like treating black people like trash is a habit. And we have entire institutions that teach white people how and when and it's appropriate and which excuses to give to treat black people like trash. It's a skill. Treating black people like trash is a skill because that's a fight too, and fighting black people is a skill. And we teach everybody how to fight black people. We don't teach anybody how to fight white people. Now nobody knows how to fight white people about their whiteness.
I pointed out to someone earlier that they were like, no one wakes up and goes, this is how I'm going to oppress black people today. I'm like, actually, what you've done is build institutions that make it so systematic that you don't have to keep it in your mind anymore. You just naturally do it.
No, it just seems like the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Obviously, I should, move to this neighborhood. Obviously, I should keep my kids away from this. Obviously, I should call the cops on blank. Obviously, I should prosecute. Obviously, everyone in jail deserves to be there. Obviously, that the entire regime of policies that have concentrated risk and degradation in the black community while giving white suburbs a holiday from all of the America suck isn't a problem.
I need to hear one judge talk about, the extensive damage done to the black community when sentencing a black person and go, you know what? We've done a lot of damage to your community, so I'm going to let you go. Yeah. Whereas, we hear about it constantly with white America where they're like, he has such a bright future. He has a bright future with his foot on my throat.
No, with this, he could fit into the system of white supremacy very well.
Yeah.
Fighting black people, everything is a skill, people, including fighting black people. Look, I've been in a lot of meetings. I'm 40 years old, and I've been in a lot of meetings. I've been in a lot of meetings since I was a teenager. And when I was first a teenager and I'd be in these meetings and something would go down, I wouldn't know how to stand up. I wouldn't know. It all happened very fast. We denied the person a job. We moved around. Things would go south, and I wouldn't know. I would just sit there and kind of twiddle my thumbs because I did not have the skill of justice. I did not have the skill to say, hold on, wait a minute. We're missing out on this justice issue. And either intellectually I wasn't prepared or ethically I wasn't prepared. Maybe I had all of the arguments in my mind, but I still wasn't practiced in saying nope, we're stopping this right here. This is not happening. This way because this is discriminatory. That's a skill. That takes practice. I wasn't at it my first year. I wasn't at it my third year. But after a while, you get to see the moves. You get to see what discrimination looks like in these small meetings. You get to see it, especially in hiring and firing. You get to see it in contracting. You get to see it. You get to be able to anticipate. And that way you can anticipate the rebuttal and stop the meeting in its tracks before we go too far away, before it all just happens so fast. Because let me tell you, black people and white allies who are trying to do the right thing, when injustice happens, it's going to happen in one of these little meetings, and it's all going to happen so fast, and you'll be like, well, I just couldn't stop it. I didn't know. It'll all happen so fast because you weren't practiced. So yes, it's a skill. Yes, it takes practice. Yes, and that's why you should get in the habit. It's a habit of addressing and cognizing injustice in everyday life. Because when it happens and there are stakes, it will happen very quickly. And you'll just be the one sitting on your hands. The amount of meetings in which I've been let down by allies, both black and white, because they weren't appropriately practiced in fighting other white people is it's a lot of meetings. It's so many meetings that I'm actually surprised when I'm in a meeting with another white person who actually gets it. Because it's a skill. It's a skill.
I can count those meetings on one hand.
One hand. Because usually what happens is, there's a meeting, my allies, lose their nerve or get confused or confuse themselves. I get thrown under a bus, and then, a week later, people apologize. This is even I'm sorry. Ooh, no, literally what happened. Yeah. Oh, I didn't know it all. I got confused and I didn't know. No, I was in jail. Thank you. You could have stopped that. I needed you to have been practiced. Yes.
And we do it for other groups. We are very good at doing it for other groups for the most part.
Well, stand up.
Yeah. Think about it when you look at how the LGBTQ community is treated. We have an entire organization that has the Human Rights Campaign somehow made it simply about human rights when in fact they only specifically work for the LGBTQ community, which is a small... And let's
be honest, they don't even work for the whole LGBT
No,
community.
they work for the white ones.
They work for the ones who go to the gym with the good teeth.
Yeah.
I've been at some of these every
time I look at the HRC, I'm like, I don't see a lot of...
I don't even know if they're good with the T's. I think they're just an LG group.
It's mostly gay men. White gay men.
We like middle class
black
LG
boyfriends.
and then black boyfriends. their black boyfriends. But we don't even like tease.
No,
all of that.
No. And it's so funny how upset white gay men get about things that affect them, but don't care about things that affect anybody else.
Look, if there's one LGBT issue that's probably the most, I don't know, I think it's probably the biggest one now that we've kind of got a handle on HIV. Probably the biggest one in the nation, it's youth homelessness.
Yes.
It's youth homelessness.
110%.
If you're at an LGBT event or gathering and they're talking about everything else except youth homelessness,
yes,
I don't know what they're doing. You got these gay kids who get kicked out of their rural town, they move to the city. Thinking things will be better in the city. Things aren't better in the city for them.
Yeah, no, and it actually plays back into the HIV issue, right, because they turn to whatever they need to survive,
right, and that's prostitution and
yeah, and we're not doing anything to address any. The problem
it's not gay marriage, it's youth homelessness.
No. If the HRC talked about youth homelessness like they did gay marriage, we might actually fix that problem.
I think it might be anywhere from 40 to 60% in some of these cities.
Yeah,
where the youth homelessness population, it's all just gay kids. Yeah, it's all queer kids. Yeah.
So I think people miss that about focusing activism on black communities too. It helps out all the other types of communities.
Yes, somehow that is a real situation where everyone comes up.
Yeah,
because no one wants to be black, so we have to be the bottom of the barrel. So if you raise us up, everybody else gets up. Yeah.
They say the rising tide lifts all ships. That's not true. What happens with the rising tide is usually the white people use their yachts to come ram my ship and then take all my stuff. You raise black people, that actually will raise everybody else. That will free everybody else because there's a lot of anxiety in the white community about how to be racist without seeming racist. We can take all of that away if you just stop being racist. So we can take that anxiety away about your private schools and all that stuff. All the machinations and stories you tell yourself that just end up confusing yourself about how racist you are if we just make you less racist. So yes, fighting white people is a skill. How do you practice? Well, just one white person at a time.
Yeah.
Just in a little meeting, it's just, and this is, I guess one good thing about call out culture possibly. It's a little meeting, just stopping the brakes. It's understanding a few things, right? Understanding a few things. One, it's okay to admit that you're in a room with a bunch of white psychopaths.
Because it happens a lot. If you think, wow, I just laid out a really good argument and I have all this evidence and they don't seem to care, it's exactly what happens because psychopaths don't care about evidence. They don't care about data. They don't care about history. They want what they want and they'll be smiling and nice. But at the end, they're not giving you that job, black man. Because they're psychopaths. That's what it means. You're not accountable to right. Just admitting that, they're psychopaths. We create, not all of them, but we created a significant amount of white psychopaths who are psychopaths that's activated when race is the variable. So just admitting that to yourself. Stop pretending that they're anything else. Now, a lot of black people who admit that we have produced a significant number of white psychopaths, they respond by just giving up. Well, there'll always be psychopaths. So that's just how it is. No, that's black fatalism. I'm not one of those either. Because it's a pathology that's not held together by biology. It's a pathology that's held together by social systems. So if you can dismantle the social systems, you'll dismantle the pathology. Because white people do not have to want to treat black people like trash. They are conditioned to want to treat the black people like trash. So if you remove the conditioning, I don't know. So And I mean, realize it doesn't have. You start out small.
You start out small.
You call out BS when you see it.
They're no, and you admit this is another thing. You admit to at least other black people, yeah, I'm terrified of white people. Then you admit to white people you're terrified of white people, and then you be honest. And I tell this, I say this every show. I don't know too many black people over 50 who are honest with white people about just how terrified black people are of white people. I don't know too many black people over 50. Because what happens is when you look at the disciplinary rates in schools from preschool up and through high school and college, like you discipline black people like willy-nilly. So anybody who's practiced the skill of fighting white people has been in jail before. And this is going to be this is great because I'm going to tie it into MLK. If you read the letter from Birmingham jail, it's a wonderful letter. He says, look, to do nonviolent resistance well, you need 4 things. First, you need to do your historical research. Then you move from historical research to negotiating. And then when they say no to negotiating, because like they're going to say no, then you have to self-purify. That's the practice. That's the discipline. First time I went to jail was not as good as the last time. It's a practice. It's a practice. And even being uncomfortable with white anxiety, because that's what's going to get you more than anything else. And with white women, it's going to be tears too. With white men, it's going to be the almost in violence and anger, and white women, it's going to be tears. All that stuff is BS. You need to get your justice, black man. And
look at them like idiots when they're crying.
Yeah, are you done crying?
I mean, you have to just turn off. You're like,
I get in trouble because when white women are crying with me, I'm just like, because they're used to that working. But I've been around enough white people that it doesn't work on me anymore. I want justice. No, that's great. I still need you to pay my people.
Yeah.
I know you feel bad about all these things, but I need you to move this pot of money over to this. So
I'd catch those tears and sell them if I could.
No, often, probably once a month, some white woman will be crying to me, and about this, and I'll be like, yeah, okay. I mean, it's fine. But in some way they're used to their tears working on other people. I just don't care.
I treat them like I do my godchild. When he falls out and throws a tantrum, we literally look at him and we're like, "Oh, okay. Your life is so hard."
Well, I'm not that condescending. But I will be like, "All right, are you done?" Oh. I got things to do.
Okay, apparently I'm an ass.
Yeah.
I'll work on my condescending.
Yeah, I'm not that condescending, but I let it be known that I'm not going to coddle you. I don't know what you think your problem is. And there's this illusion that white women have it hard. They don't have it hard.
I need to master your ability to not have an expression, because I think even if I don't say anything, my face tells them that I'm thinking, yeah, life is hard for you. I get it. So
yeah, I'm just keep it pimping. I don't.
I think people attribute anger to you way too much. If anyone ever actually met you, they'd realize you're probably one of the least angry people.
No, I'm just not under any illusion. So here's the deal. We've coddled white people so much that when they run into me, they think I'm angry. But no, I'm just not used to, I'm just not going to coddle you. I'm not I got enough things that are aging me prematurely. I'm not going to spend my energy coddling white people about their whiteness. So it's not that I'm angry. It's just that this is just my steady state. And it's actually not so bad.
I need to apparently. You could teach a class on that state. That needs to be the class we attend.
I'm at a steady state. I don't. I'm just not confused by the psychopathy and the cowardness. And here's the deal. Why this is important as a skill is because bravery is a skill. Wielding power is a skill. So if you're not used to standing up to white people, and I'll be honest, now that we're in a modern corporate environment, this includes white women. If you're not used to standing up to them, it'll be a problem. It'll be a problem. If you can't fight white people about whiteness, if you aren't used to standing up to them and are saying no, not on my watch, and understanding that we're in a white supremacist society, so standing up to them includes going to be some sort of censure. Might be prison, might be a job. But if you're not used to that and doing so publicly, you're not going to be able to do it when the moment's called. So black people at home, how are you training your kids to stand up for white people or to stand up against white supremacy? How are you training your kids to fight? My 6-year-old has all the arguments. My 6-year-old has all the arguments. He knows that white people are crazy. Not all of them, but that a lot of them are sick in the head. And this is what I said. A lot of them are sick in the head. And it's not you, it's them, and they're sick. Not all of them, but enough of them are sick that just don't be surprised when they treat you poorly because they're sick. It's nothing that you did, but they're sick. And then they teach, and it's a kind of sickness, so it passes from one person to another. And so, yeah, my 6-year-old can talk about white pathology pretty well. And, it just kind of goes. And I think it's true. So it's not just I'm like filling her head full of hate. No, I'm just telling you that white people are sick. And so it's better than that, because if you don't do that, they end up blaming themselves or confused. Maybe I am bad. No, white people are sick. That's what I tell my kid. Yeah. And I think it's fair, because you know what? A lot of black people who didn't get that message end up being very confused as adults. They end up very confused as adults. But if you just assume that, like, oh yeah, there's a significant number of white people who are pathological, and it's a structure that's in place that's made them pathological, and they're not going to be amenable to argument, then like everything makes more sense. That's just where they're at.
Growing up, I remember the speech that every young black male has gotten about how many strikes we're born with.
Yeah.
We need to add this to that conversation.
No, they're sick. They're like moral persuasion. Don't be surprised. No, they're psychopaths. Like, we make American psychopaths, and so the task is dismantling the institutions that reproduce and sustain white psychopathy, and that's a skill. And so you need the arguments, but then you need to be aware of the insight of when the arguments won't work. When the arguments won't work, and when you need to go at other means. So yeah, I don't have a problem. I'm surprised people don't think this is a skill. And I've just been in so many meetings where people blink because they don't know how to appropriately shut down white power. They just don't, even if they want to do it, it's just they're not practiced at it. And then they think they can do it because they can shut down white men. And then when the white supremacy comes from women, they're like, yeah. So you got to practice shutting down both white men and white women. When people get angry, other people start crying. Doesn't matter. Get your justice for your people, black man.
And we saw a great point to that when we were looking at, I think you posted it, the review from Get Out, where everyone was like, I just was expecting her to turn out to be like a good person. And I'm like,
I wish I had that clip. There's a movie Get Out. I'm sure a lot of you've seen it. But the Allison Williams, I think it's Allison Williams, the woman who played Rose, still gets stopped on the street, and the people who stop on the street saying but you were hypnotized in the movie, right? And she's like, no, I was just one of the bad people. They're like, but no. Really? And they're like, yeah, no, I was bad the whole time. I masterminded the whole thing. I was the villain. And they're like, but you're also a victim. And then she's like, no. So we have this we're not used to actually seeing white women as villains, about race. When, I don't know, you look at the voting rolls, you look at the exit polls, we'd have a different quality of governance if white women weren't bad on race issues. So that's all I say. I want. It's a skill, people. Everything's a skill. I teach my kids piano. I teach them how to fight white supremacy. Teach them how to read. It's all a skill. And the idea that you don't have to practice it is just, it's not true. And not just practice, because with classical music, I was a classical musician for a while. It's not just practice that makes perfect. It's perfect practice that makes perfect. So you can't practice doing it badly. So you need to practice understanding when moral suasion is not going to work here. And you need to practice using power politics. You need to practice doing it well. And yeah, that's, and when Bobby Wright says black people kill black people because they don't have any experience killing white people, or black people fight white people because they don't have any experience fighting black people. That's true. Everyone has experience treating black people like trash. That's why we continue to treat black people like trash. Nobody has experience actually securing justice for black communities. That's why we never secured justice for black communities. There's also, I'll say, I might have said last show too, the World War I and World War II veterans were very good for the civil rights movement insofar as they were used to fighting white people.
And now we only go to war with brown people. So
now we only go to war with brown people, so our veterans aren't as practiced at seeing white people as like, and fighting them. Because black people are used to seeing white people as an enemy. They're not used to fighting them. So this is where we get used to, it's a skill, and engage it. Don't run away from it. Don't shield your kids from it. Get used to the combat. Get used to it. And that's it. Before I leave, I want to just say, nonviolence works insofar as the goal is transformation. And it's hard to transform people through violence. You usually just displace them. But if they're psychopaths, like, you might have to displace them. So nonviolence can be transformative, but it's only transformative if they can be shamed. So then you need institutions that actually like allow white people to be shamed. And those are few and far between. So we need to be honest about like, what are those kind of institutions? How do we build them? And nonviolence is not peaceful. It's just, you are not necessarily the agent of violence, right? He's called it militant nonviolence. That's what Showdown for Nonviolence is about. It's about militant nonviolence. The goal is to provoke the violence that's already embedded in society out. So you have to do all the things they tell black people not to do. And then when you do them, make sure you get the white violent response on tape. And then if they can be shamed, they will be shamed. If they can't be shamed, well, it's the difference between like a movement and a mass grave. One has the violence white people do on black people on tape, and then the mass grave just has a mass grave. Matthew, what's up?
I think you nailed it.
I think it's good.
Yeah, I think you
I was
nailed
trying
it.
to think of the conversation we were having before the show. Oh, God. I can't remember what it was. It came to my head and went right away. I think one of the common misconceptions about you is that people don't recognize you're actually trying to create better white people.
Yes, we have to live with you. No, the goal is destabilize your institutions. So that the goal is to destabilize your institution to create I live in a world with you. You're a voting majority of the country in a democracy. Like there's I create better white people. It's not just I'm trying to create better white people. I already have created better white people. Like, to be honest, like I create better white people. My buddy thought I was being arrogant when I said, I usually just create the quality of friends I need. Like I said, but like I actually just end up creating the quality of friends I need. Like, the goal is to create better white people. But first we have to realize that you're sick, and you might need to the intervention. People who do an intervention actually care about the person getting better.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Like people who do an intervention care about the person getting clean. I need white people to get clean. But you might need an intervention. There needs to be an intervention, which means I need to kind of take you into receivership, be in control of your education and your schools and your churches and even your family structures. And then you'll be better. But yeah, we need an intervention on white culture. It's funny because we did the intervention on black culture with the Moynihan Report, and we just need an intervention on white culture. And this is another thing. I'm going to end this because it's Martin Luther King Jr.'s day, and a lot of people are going to spend their time this weekend and next week talking about Martin Luther King and talking about black history and why that's very important. Black history is important, but where we screw up is the history of white terrorism. That's where we screw up. We don't understand the political economy that's built on white terrorism. We don't have that history. That is the history we need. And there are a few good books that get this right. I mean, Mercer Baradawan's The Color of Money is a great book. And that's just about how the political economy of white supremacy. It's good. It's good. And another one, Tommy Curry's The Man Not. It's a fantastic book. It's dense, but it is fantastic. And that's just about the history of white terror and how it's affected how we view black males. And then another one, if you're in Athens, there's a great book called Beyond the Mask of Chivalry, which is about the Athens Klan. It's about the Klan in Athens, Georgia. And all the institutions that made that Klan are still around. The same paper, the Athens Badinal Herald, the same churches that the Klan recruited after. are still there. She names the churches by name. She changes some of the last names of the people because the people are still here. They are your landlords now. Like they're your old family businesses now. Yeah. So that's the goal. So thank you for your time. I am grateful for what you're doing. What's up? What's up? What is this? Is there something wrong?
No, I was saying remind them.
Remind them that, oh yeah, hey, this doesn't happen for free. And believe it or not, this might make it a little bit hard for me to get a job later on in life. So if you care about me being solvent and my kids, my good little, because you support me, you support my kids, and then my kids go out and fight for all you all. So like it all works. Generations. Go to thefunkyacademic.com and kick down $5, $15, or $50 a month because I'm providing a quality of education that other people are too scared to provide. And I'm also modeling courage in a way that other people are a little bit too scared to model. So thank me for taking on the risk that and cultivating the quality of sensibility that will, I hope, improve the quality of your life. Thank you for your time and peace.